Hello, and welcome back to another video of Turtles All the Way Down. We've seen it in movies, novels, and stories, such as in the Tron, The Matrix, and Dark City movies, in the Black Mirror TV series, and in William Gibson's Neuromancer and Ernest Cline's Ready Player One novels. Are we living in a simulation? Metaphysical questions about our experienced reality have been with us since at least ancient times. In the Western traditions of philosophy, we have such stories as Plato's cave allegory, in which prisoners in a cave have for their entire lives only been privy to the outside of their cave environment by observing the flat shadows of those outside objects on the inside cave walls. That is their reality, until one of them escapes their confined life and walks out of the cave to see an unimaginably different reality of brightness, colors, and 3 dimensions. Eastern traditions likewise have questioned their realities as well. For example, in ancient China, we have the Taoist story of Zhuangzi's butterfly dream. Zhuangzhao dreams he is a butterfly, experiencing everything that it does, until he wakes up. But did he? He begins questioning whether he is really a butterfly that is dreaming of Zhuangzhao. Throughout our history, there has never been a lack of speculations concerning what is real and what is illusion. What is the relationship between our objective world and our subjective experiences? In our highly technical and digital world, we are still asking the same questions, but have put a decidedly familiar spin on them. Is everything in nature and everything that we subjectively experience really just a kind of illusion? Are we really living in a simulation? That idea is what we'll be discussing in this video. The simulation hypothesis is a concept that has been popularized by the Swedish philosopher Nick Bostrom and has been expanded upon or endorsed by many others, including the Australian philosopher David Chalmers, the astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Elon Musk, among others. The simulation hypothesis says that our universe, or what we perceive as our universe, including our own subjective experiences, are all being simulated by something outside of our reality. From the perspective of our present state of technology, the idea is commonly associated with a reality that is being generated from a kind of computer. In other words, our universe's simulation is created from a super advanced computer. Nick Bostrom's simulation argument has 3 assumptions, and they go like this. 1. Super advanced computing power in the future with the ability to simulate consciousness at our human level. 2. They run past world simulations using that technology. And 3. They run many of these world simulations. There are a spectrum of ways that these assumptions may be correct or wrong. Bostrom lists 3 conclusions that follow from all these possible scenarios. Bostrom's Trilemma, as they are called. 1. If the first assumption is incorrect, then future human civilizations are not likely to reach that advanced stage of computing power. If the first assumption is correct, but the second or third assumptions are incorrect, then future human civilizations are not likely to be interested in past simulations of their history. And finally, 3. If all the assumptions are correct, our experiences and our world are most likely generated by a simulation. We are living and experiencing a simulation. So, Bostrom says that if our future descendants are able to create and harness computing power that is able to fully simulate conscious experiences and a reality like our own, and do so repeatedly, then there will be many more simulated human minds than there are of truly biological minds. It follows then that the chances of your experiences coming from a simulated mind is much more likely than one that is coming from a biological brain. Your experiences are being simulated, and you wouldn't even know it. But again, all three of those assumptions must be true for this conclusion to follow. Needless to say, there has been criticism of these ideas from various disciplines. Scientists, engineers, and philosophers have attacked Bostrom's assumptions and the idea itself. In fact, Nick Bostrom himself does not believe that we live in a simulation. He gives it a chance of around 20% that it is true. Physicist Sabine Hossenfelder has called the simulation hypothesis pseudoscientific and possibly religious. Hossenfelder feels that the idea is tainted with the untestable concepts of a deity or a higher level world that cannot, even in principle, be scientifically observed. Physicist Sean Carroll argues that the hypothesis leads to a contradiction. Carroll's criticism states that a simulated world will necessarily have access to less computing power than the simulators above them. Therefore, the lower simulated world will never be able to generate any distinguishable version of their own world, and so on, down each level of simulation, with less and less resolution and detail in each lower simulated world. Most simulated worlds would be found in that lower level. So, Carroll reasons, a civilization will not be able to generate a simulation that becomes indistinguishable from their own. They will never have the power or resources to do so. The assumption that we can eventually simulate consciousness is also hotly debated. Is this even possible? Consciousness is a phenomenon that is quite mysterious, as its mechanism is still not known. We discussed the mysteries of consciousness and its workings in an earlier video here. Some experts side with the idea that only brains can create it, and that computers or non-biological devices will never be able to. Maybe civilizations can never make it far enough to advance to a stage where we can even attempt to simulate consciousness. Maybe we eventually succumb to self-destructive urges or perish through natural events long before self-simulations can occur. These ideas were also explored in one of my previous videos. Check it out here. Assuming future humanity does make it to the point where our technology can reliably generate consciousness and simulate worlds, will we be motivated to create past worlds? And if so, will we create many of them? Perhaps one or two are created, but enough information is gathered from them to satisfy the future civilization's goals, and the technology's uses are then utilized for other purposes, and therefore not enough simulations will exist to justify the probability that we will be within one of them. Other questions concern the computing power required to simulate the universe and our consciousness. How much information would be needed to simulate our world with enough resolution to make it indistinguishable from ours? This is still an unknown, and estimates are considerably varied. Many factors have to be considered to approach this calculation. It depends on how deterministic you want your universe to be, or how you want to generate the simulation. Do you do it using traditional, quantum, or some other exotic computing? Also, how finely resolved must your simulation be? Do you simulate down to cells, atoms, subatomic particles? And in what parts of your simulation? Just those areas of the universe that are being observed, or across the entire cosmos? Some estimates have shown that future computers the size of planets would be required to fully simulate human-level civilizations. Okay, so let us assume that we can at least simulate the universe that we humans can observe and test scientifically. How would we be able to even test the idea? How can we go about finding those glitches in the matrix? One method, explored by physicists, is the hypothesis that at the smallest space-time scales, reality is pixelated in a grid-like fashion. This pixelation would reveal itself, the scientists claim, in high-energy cosmic rays energy levels. The rays' energies would display cutoffs if a simulation were real. Another group of computer scientists and physicists have proposed experiments that may test the simulation hypothesis. Their suggested experiments test collapses of quantum wave functions, wave-particle duality, and interference patterns to look for anomalies. But even these experiments could prove futile, as the simulators may perhaps code fail-safe methods that prevent observation of glitches or anomalies, so that none can even in principle be found. And again, a hypothetical simulation of our world may not even be generated from any of our known simulating technology, such as digital computing, but instead through some unknown or very exotic method. How would we even be able to test for something so unimaginably advanced? In conclusion, the simulation hypothesis is an idea that is not new. It just comes to us nowadays wrapped in a veneer of our own current state of high technology. The arguments and assumptions may be reliable if we continue with our increased technology, and if we can indeed generate consciousness through computing. Personally, I feel that both of these ideas are quite sound. However, I also believe that the required resources for creating a simulation of millions or billions of humans and a sufficiently detailed rendering of our universe would be so prohibitive, even for a future technological civilization, that it would essentially prevent full-scale simulations, let alone many of those simulations. In conclusion, it may be that the only way of creating an indistinguishable universe from our own is not by any artificial means, but how nature did it. Thank you for staying with me and Turtles All the Way Down. I really hope you've enjoyed exploring these big questions and ideas as much as I have. There are many more to explore, so stay tuned and consider subscribing to this channel to stay up to date on upcoming releases. So until next video, stay safe and stay curious. Bye for now.